coverage of the 2023 Iditarod. We're your hosts, Brendan and Sean. And well, we are officially at the back of the pack. And as we are recording this, we've got 7 mushers left to finish the 2023 Iditarod. Let's see. Mr. Williams Jr. is making his run right now into Rome, or Nome? Rome. Jeez. And then we've got a few folks that are in White Mountain. That would be Bridget Watkins, Joanna Jagao, and Bailey Vitello, and also Mr. Thiert. And then coming into White Mountain, we've got Jason Mackey and Jed Stevenson. So they'll be competing for the Red Lantern Award, and it'll be interesting to see who takes that one home. For a while, I thought it was going to be Jason Mackey, but it looks like Jed Stevenson might be taking that honor. So that is the update, Sean. Thoughts on what's going on that's left in the race, at least?
Yeah, I mean, this is where dreams are coming true, you know. Uh, Jed Stevenson's a rookie trying to get his that belt buckle. So is Bailey Vitello. Jason Mackey carried his brother's Lance Mackey's ashes down the trail. I'm sure this has been an emotional, it's particularly an emotional run for him, and where he's had a lot to think about. And I mean, this is just like such a pilgrimage. It feels like a pilgrimage 300 miles into the race, and here they are, 900 miles in, and it's just like, I mean, this kind of changes you as a person, and you know, even these guys at the back of the pack, that people kind of they're particularly following this one specific musher. People tend to not pay attention. No, they're not winning, but man, these are like it's just a monumental occasion for all these teams, and it looks like they're all moving well. And right now, it's Jed Stevenson and Jason Mackey are going over Little McKinley, which is they call it a hill, but I'll call it a mountain. Uh, and it's gonna be pretty windy. And the back of the pack right now is also potentially dealing with a little bit more wind than a lot of the front runners. But honestly, when I was watching some of those finishing videos, like looks like some people got worked by the wind. It's everybody's least favorite weather feature. I think it sucks.
Sure. And well, can you just talk a little bit more? So, like, you know, the last 4 or 5 days of us covering the race have been mostly us focusing on the front of the pack, and a lot of those folks have their goal is, I want to win the Iditarod this year, and certain teams have that ability to go for it. But when it comes to the back of the pack, a lot of those folks are kind of just, they're fulfilling a dream. And maybe they're not competitive from the race standpoint, but they're no less of badasses than the people who are in the top 10, And I guess what I was going to ask you, though, is, like, and you can kind of speak about it with your experience. You Once you thought about the idea of running the Iditarod, I'm sure, like, for a split second, you're like, I want to win the Iditarod, but in the grand scheme of things, you were just like, I just really want to run the Iditarod. I want to finish the Iditarod. I want to get to the finish line with happy, healthy dogs. And so I think, like, especially this back of the pack group, they've kind of got hit with some worse weather. They've been having to deal with worse conditions than the front of the pack. They're out there longer, but yet they're still doing it, and there's a lot of love there. And so I don't know, just I kind of got lost in that question, but just speak to that, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like a marathon. You have people in marathons that want to win it, people that want to get their personal best time, and people that just want to get to the finish line. And I think all these guys are wanting to get their personal best time. That's the goal. Uh, and yeah, I think it's pretty tough just finishing this damn thing. Of course, let me just say, I do get a lot more sleep. And by a lot more sleep, I mean instead of 1 hour a day, 3 hours a day, which is not that much sleep. But yeah, uh, you can see, the interviews for some of these people that are, maybe a little more energetic because they've gotten some more sleep, or the dogs who get a little bit more rest. They're all kind of running the same speed. All of these teams. Jason Mackey, he's down to the minimum amount of dogs, 5 dogs, but like he's still moving at just a mile an hour slower than Jed, who has literally double the amount of dogs. So like I just want to reiterate, you have a small team does not necessarily mean you're going slower. You can have a sled and some good dogs, and you help them up those hills, and you can get going pretty good. In fact, I had, you know, if you were to have a 5 dog team around, you'd be surprised. I mean, even some people just walking one dog on the sidewalk is too much for some people. So these guys are doing just fine with 5. But yeah, this is a um, an experiment. I think it's really about the journey and being out there with the dogs and all the people that you bring together, all the people that want to get that are supporting and watching and following, and so maybe Lance Mackey's or Jason Mackey's watch this cousins grandpa watching this, like it just really far reaching. It brings a lot of people together, and sometimes the world needs a little bit more of that. So it's it's nice to have people from all different kinds of reaches of life and have all different kinds of goals in this race to um, be out there. And it's not just about winning. It's like, what is winning to you? And for these guys, it's about enjoying the experience, getting to the finish line, going on an adventure, enjoying an expedition, experiencing some personal growth, and disconnecting from the maybe the day to day life, and getting out there and kind of getting in touch with yourself, with the dogs, and with the great outdoors.
Right. Just hearing you say that made me think. I can't remember who I was listening to, but they were saying something about how, like, once the race starts, it's almost like relief. It's almost like, we don't have to worry about getting all of the drop bags ready. We don't have to worry about all the training. We don't have to worry about all the like behind the scenes stuff that goes into the race. Instead, they can just do the race, and like they can block it out, and they don't have to worry about a bunch of different, things. So just kind of just hearing you talk about that made me think of that. And then the other thing that, I wanted you to kind of follow up on is that piece about, you know, the assumption is you see a team that finishes with less dogs, and, maybe you start to wonder why that is. Um, I'm just curious, like you said, that Jason Mackey has 5 dogs left, but he's still going at a relatively decent pace, just a mile an hour slower than a lot of the other folks. So can you just paint a picture about? It's not necessarily the most important thing to have. I mean, I guess people want to have more dogs to finish, but um, you know, I don't know. Just speak about that subject on the dogs, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, getting the dog home before they're having a problem, but after you see that problem coming, right? If you're a good musher, you can see, okay, enthusiasm that this dog typically has isn't there. All right, I'm gonna send him home at the next checkpoint. Um, and you want to do that before it's a problem, and all these guys are doing that, and you know, people like sometimes a lot of people put a lot of weight on, like, oh yeah, all these dogs that have been dropped in this, and it's like that's kind of a good thing in a way. You want the dogs to go home that need to go home, and you got a dog with a tricep soreness, and they can keep running. They want to keep running. They want to keep going, and uh, you know but it's not gonna that tricep's not gonna heal itself to but um done with the 5 dog team, and they're a bunch of steady dogs. It is you a little. I bet you Jason's like really being pretty careful. You have zero room for any issues, and it's possible maybe there is a dog that ends up having some kind of issue that he ends his race in White Mountain. That's on the table, and no one knows that better than Jason. So obviously, yeah, you want to have more than 5 dogs in your team, but it's not a deal breaker. He's 100 miles from the finish line. He's got an 8-hour rest coming up, and you get his dog some good care. And I think he should be just fine. Of course, Mother Nature might have something else to say. These guys still have some really really difficult trail ahead of them. Right now, going through Little McKinley, they'll hit the top hills that are typically just ripping wind on the top of these hills. I That was some of the gnarliest wind I've ever experienced. Um, and so yeah, well, but you got you're only as good as your slowest dog, so there's no point in keeping the slow poke dog. To have 6 dogs, you're gonna go slower doing that than you would just sending them home and taking 5 strong ones.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And so, yeah, the other thing that I wanted to bring up was since our last video, we did have another scratch. Eric Kelly unfortunately scratched, and I was just going to pull up. He made a post and figured I would just read that, but said, "Hey everyone, just letting you know the dogs and I are home from the trail. The race did not go as planned, but I am proud of what we have accomplished. I will share a race recap in the near future. But here's the short version of why we scratched. After working our way through the Blueberry Hills out of Unalakleet, we headed down toward Shaktoolik. That's when the north wind picked up. Once we were down on the coast, the wind was steady at around 50 miles an hour right in our face. We were mushing from marker to marker when possible, but visibility was almost zero. We got to a point where we could not find the next marker. I could see my leaders were struggling, running into the wind, and woed the team up so we could refocus. At that point, the team decided they had had enough and laid down. I got them all huddled together and got ready to settle in for an extended stay. We were sitting unprotected on the coast in a 50-mile-an-hour wind, and it didn't take me very long to realize I was soaked with sweat from our climb through the Blueberry Hills, and the wind was cutting right through my layers. I decided then it would be best to call the race. Almost immediately, I saw a light coming towards me. It turned out Gloria Andrew from the village had been watching me on the tracker, and when she noticed I had stopped, took it upon herself to get on her snow machine and come check on us. I won't read the rest, but that at least paints a picture of what Eric was up against. And obviously we're rooting for everyone to finish. I still think that you and Eric, you haven't met, have you? Is that right?
I've seen him at some events, but I haven't really had a nice conversation where he meets me and I meet him.
Sure. I just get the vibe from seeing some of his videos that you and him would get along well. So, anyways, we just thought I would share that back story on as to why he decided that he needed to scratch. And I don't know if you knew the details of that before I just read it to you, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on any of that.
Yeah, I just saw that he scratched, but I've been out and about today, so I didn't see this. That was just posted earlier today. 50 miles an hour, just like I don't know, people. It's hard to kind of gauge like how much wind that is. That's like when it's blowing 20 miles an hour. That would be like maybe the windiest I've ever seen it when I was growing up in Atlanta. Like 20 miles an hour is freaking windy. To be 2.5 times windier than that is just like it's difficult to conceive unless you've been in it. Of course, also it's below freezing, and you're going up and down hills, and you can't see shit because it's blowing all the snow around the ground. So you have minimal visibility if you don't have really strong lead dogs that are mentally, that is, uh, you know, you can see that doubt creep in, to both the musher and the dogs. And I remember being in some similar conditions and being terrified, but having these badass dogs that in front of me that were just charged straight through the storm, straight through the wind, and was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Just like these, me having like a borderline panic attack about how crazy this blizzard is, and then the dogs are just like, "Oh, dude, we totally got this, it's fine." But sometimes, that's not the case, and when you're in a storm like that, you don't want to stop at all. I mean, yes, it's okay to stop, but you want to minimize the length of the stop, because the longer that you stop, the more inclined your dogs are going to be to lay down, and that's what happened. Um, I don't know, but I don't know. I wasn't out there. Like, it's just tough to like say, you know, what's the right move, what's the wrong move. Could he have done everything differently? And that Eric's going to be thinking about shoulda, coulda, woulda. At least that's how I am. Maybe other people are sane and they enjoy being walking around, giving themselves a break, but I can't seem to do that. But yeah, if he felt like his dogs were needed to bed down, it's hard to get them back up at 50 miles an hour. I mean, if you go camping at 50-mile-an-hour winds, I don't think you're really going to want to get out of your tent to go hiking in the morning. When you wake up, you just kind of hunker down. So that's just kind of what happens. And if you don't get to some protected area, the dogs are just kind of going to hang out there. And yeah, you see that tempting light coming at you in the snow machine. It's pretty easy to say, hey, I'm going to call this. And I think he really did right by his dogs, and that's never a bad choice to go home early if that's what you feel like you need to do. And yeah, it's a bummer, because he probably had plenty of gas left in the tank, but he just kind of got hosed by Mother Nature.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate, and you hate to see it when someone isn't able to finish the race. But it's good to hear that it sounds like they were all safe, and that, big picture wise, everyone's going to be fine. So that's a good thing. The next thing that I wanted to pull up was a video that we found from Wade Mars. And perfect. I've got it loaded. And I'm just going to press play and we can kind of talk over it. But this is the run into Nome from the Topcock Hills. And yeah, I mean, looks pretty gnarly. Not going to lie. Whoops. There we go.
Yeah, man. So this is we're probably seeing the 30 to 45-mile-an-hour winds in this video. It's so cool to see how strong the dog's look in that. And he has Hunter Keefe in front of him. Um, that's the badass dog team right there. And Wade's been in this stuff plenty. He's super experienced on the coast, been on the Iditarod a bunch of times, and I don't know. It's like really good footage, dude. We love good footy.
I mean, listen, what maybe we were missing for a little while. A lot of the videos have kind of come in recently, so when we were getting ready to do this, Sean was like, "Dude, this video is pretty cool from Wade," and thought we would show that to you guys. So that was that, and then we were talking about Matt Hall, and he had some cool photos up as well. Let's see. I gotta find that up here. That's right here. So
we just yep. It's just we can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the sign. You're 20 miles from Nome. There's a road somewhere underneath that snow probably. And yeah, he literally stopped his team, parked him, and just to take this photo. He thought it was cool. You see the buildings of Nome off in the distance, and 20 miles to the eye, and that went from what I understand, it Nome looks really close, and still you got 2.5 hours to go, and it looks like it's just 5 minutes away, you know. So it's a fun last run.
Let's see.
Yeah, there's Matt brushing his teeth. You gotta keep that hygiene out there, and that's a good
Note to
trick
Brent.
to
Note
keep
to
your.
Brent. No offense.
We don't. Yeah, poor
Hey,
Brent.
I just mean I mean that from a place of love, but also
We
because
all
it's
get.
worth a good laugh.
We like to give people shit. It's okay. Uh, Look at the comments. Lauro Eklund, who's run a bunch of mid distance races, and he's going to be running his rookie Iditarod maybe next year, maybe the year after. Wow, musher with all his teeth. It's pretty hard to find these days. Um, but yeah, I mean, brushing your teeth, that's also a good trick to try to stay awake. Like, staying awake. I always would pick a task and complete it. And sometimes it was just as simple as like, oh, let's go get my water bottle out of my sled. Open the water bottle, take a sip. Oh, look, I just bought myself 20 seconds of being awake. And then I'm right back to crashing again. But yeah, we appreciate these photos from the mushers that, they know we're not going to see it for a while, but they're all coming out now. So yeah, this team camped out in the sunset or sunrise, and uh, right on the
Looks
side of the trail.
beautiful. That looks absolutely beautiful.
Absolutely.
And that's the Norton Sound. Gosh, that shit looks so crazy, man. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, but
Matt
it just
Hall.
looks absolutely absurd to think that you're about to cross the ocean, you know?
Absolutely. Matt Hall is, I mean, he had an incredible race, man. I mean, this guy was in 11th, 12th place in Caltag. He mushed all the way up to fourth place with a really fast run times. And, he just knew he had the team that's strong enough to maybe he did a couple of long runs and a couple of shorter rests and snuck into fourth place, dude. I mean, that's really you love to see. I've said this a bunch of times, but my favorite version of mushing is when you see mushers at the last third of the race just climb up the rankings. And Matt Hall was, I mean, that was one of the most exceptional pushes in the end of the race this year. I'd say it is the push. When you look at the top 10 mushers, he just to sneak in there and then finish behind only the winner, Ryan Reddington and Pete Kaiser and Richie Deal. You know, Amazing run. And he just seems like such a nice guy, and I think he's great for the sport, and he's still got a lot of years of doing this ahead of him.
Yeah. Yeah, and his interview at the finish line was really I think a testament to the type of guy that he is, and I know that he wanted to get a top five. That was his goal, and he accomplished that. And so we mentioned earlier, like every racer or every musher has a different idea of what winning is, and I think that Matt won what he set out to do. So at least that's kind of how it felt to me when I watched that video. We pulled up a few other pictures. Sean just really liked this dog of
Dude,
From Dan Caduce's kennel, Dew Claw.
these dogs are just freaking adorable, man. We don't talk about this enough. I mean, dude, the dogs obviously they're like working dogs, but a lot of people expect like them to be just kind of indifferent to people. They love people. They love their affection from their owner. They have a similar temperament to your house dog, but just a little more high energy, of course. Um, but these guys, they deserve a nice long rest, and this dog's just they like to curl up. They like like some humans too. They like to feel that support. So some dogs prefer curling up in the smaller the space, the better. And for some dogs, so you see a dog in the kennel like this, and they're just all curled up, and he's got straw all around him. The walls of the kennel kind of almost feeling like someone's cuddling him, and he just kind of baking in the sun, enjoying the heat of the day. Just a well-earned rest, and I'm sure they're chowing down, getting massages, and uh, just enjoying a nice rest. And they have a dog line. When we get to the finish line, they're in an area where they have all the dogs out. They got bales of straw everywhere, and they all kind of just um, are getting fed and getting that R&R, and then waiting to get that flight back to the first available flight back to Anchorage, where there's going to be someone from the kennel or someone from their property or someone, a friend, to come and ready to pick them up and bring them back home. And these dogs, some dogs, like the winning Iditarod team, they typically might need a day or two extra rest before they're right back to just being fully excited and running around. I remember Dallas 2021 wins the Iditarod, comes back. 24 hours later, we were doing tours, and the Iditarod team was watching the tours happen. They were all at the end of their line, just screaming and barking, like, "We want to go on a tour. Let's go, let's go." You're like, dude, you just ran 1,000 miles in 9 days, and they're just like, "Okay, great, let's go run it back." So, um, but yeah, these guys get a nice deserved rest, and dude, I don't know if you've ever. I think that any dog owner can attest to this. That anytime your dog is tired and resting, it's like the cutest version of them because they're just like all cuddly and affectionate and uh, you know, filled up. And so this photo just embodies that. He's mid nap, like, and looks.
Looks
I
so
just
happy
want
and
to just
content,
give
man.
this dog a big old hug.
Gotta love it. And then the last thing that I wanted to pull up was some pictures of Hunter Keefe from this was Alaska Daily News, I believe. Yeah, and
Anchorage Daily News.
excuse me, Anchorage Daily News. But you just see some great looking photos here. I'll go down. This is his run into
Oh,
Nome.
sick! What a photo.
Yeah,
Dude, he just like ran the ultimate race. I'm just so super impressed by him and his dog team. Every single run, the entire race was just super fast and strong. And I mean, what a rookie race! He didn't win Rookie of the Year. Who cares? This guy ran by all measures an incredible race. Super competitive, kept it fun, and he's just like happy and having fun, and it's like contagious. Not just to the dog team that he's running, but to the people that he's around and at the people at checkpoints. And I everything I see about Hunter seems like um, just the perfect representation of Iditarod and Mushing. And this is a great article that you can find on Anchorage Daily News about him completing his childhood dream, getting to the finish line, and kind of brings me kind of to if you're an Iditarod insider, those finishing videos. I mean, I don't know how not every single person that gets to the finish line isn't just weeping like a little child. I'm literally like emotional watching other mushers finish. And I mean,
me
like I
too.
remember watching Kelly Maxner's video, and he's like, he just can't even. He had a real sound. Looks like he just had a terribly windy run to get to the finish, and he was kind of rattled. And they're just asking like, "What kept you going out there?" And he's talking about my kids and my wife, and his voice all trembling and emotional. And his wife's like, "You know what? Can you just stop the interview? We're gonna go get this guy a nap and a beer." And so he just chugged a beer and was like, "Peace, I'm out of here." And I just thought it was, I don't know, it's just such a special moment. If you finish first or last or anywhere in between, just that sigh of relief and um, to getting to see the people in your life and getting to, you know, getting inside. And I don't know, your dogs are gonna be just fine. They got all your handlers and all your coworkers and all the people that have helped you train these dogs are there. They know them very well. You can share what they need, and you can go inside and have a beer and take a nap. And yeah, it's these are just some special moments that they get to catch on film of these guys crossing underneath the burled arch that you see here in the background of this photo.
Yeah, I especially now that that I have a son, any of the videos where the family are there with their kids are like just tear at me.
Oh yeah.
What was it? I think it was Eddie Burks, his daughter is just
Oh
like
my
10 years
gosh,
old,
dude.
just like I'm just sitting there tearing up, and then I thought it was cute how she was like, "Next time, don't fall off the off the sled." Just like I'm sure that's the last thing he wants to hear as he gets to the finish line. But yeah, I mean, I know for me, watching you come up through the finish line in 21 was for me was emotional. I would imagine for you, it was tenfold, hundredfold that much more emotional. So it's just a beautiful thing to see these people finish. I mean, anyone who signs up for the Iditarod, it's some sort of a sick dream that they have to do, and so they sign themselves up for this craziness. And so it's really nice to see people finish, and you know, we'll be rooting on. I really hope Jed just stays strong, and right now he's the one that is looking like the Red Lantern. So you know, I I don't know. I think for the fantasy mushing, don't you get some extra points if you have the Red Lantern?
I think so. Yeah.
Ding, that's your boy right here, Jetty. I need you holding that down, bro.
Nice. That's funny. Yeah.
um,
Let me look at a couple of like times. It's always fun to see what's the fastest time from safety to known. That's like a competition in the race.
and
So
while you do that, just analyze that. I was gonna tell a story. I didn't know if you heard this or not, but before before the race started, apparently this is from I believe Greg Heister was telling the story, but he mentioned that before the race, Ryan Reddington was eating a fortune cookie, and he forgot that there was a fortune in the cookie, and so he's kind of struggling to eat it, obviously. And once he pulled it out, he was reading it, and it said something about the number five is going to be your lucky number this week. And then he pulled bib number five, and he went on to win the race. And so, I what are the chances of kind of a unique story like that actually, you know, happening? But it's kind of like the stars aligned, and all the family history that is with the race and the Reddingtons. There was also one thing that I wanted to clarify. In a couple videos ago, I allude to a 10-hour run from Caltag to Unalakleet, but I went back and looked at that, and it's actually only 9 hours. And
oh, I thought it was 10 hours and 5 minutes.
the reason I thought it was 10 hours and 5 minutes is because it is part of the daylight savings changeover.
Oh,
Yes, yes.
brilliant.
So it's
We're
10
we're
hours,
pretty
but it was
dim.
9 hours. Yes, with the daylight savings. And I remember hearing, I think it was Pete Kaiser maybe, or someone else. They were talking about. I'm just trying to figure out what hour it is right now because the daylight savings. Of course,
Yeah,
that
that
has
is
to
such
happen
a
during the
trip.
race. Like that has to just mess with you. Like you're sitting there calculating whatever you're doing next, and then you have to figure out where you are with daylight savings. I'm sure that
Hmm.
just with all the sleep deprivation just makes it even worse. So,
This
and
is
dude,
Go ahead.
well, so you kind of talked about it earlier how like when we're talking about sleep deprivation, you were talking about how like, all right, my next task is to go grab my water bottle and take a sip of my water bottle, and that's just something that you are doing, that you give yourself that task to keep you awake. Um, but I
Especially
remember
on those
as
flat, boring trails, when you're going up hills and down hills, those are exciting enough to keep you awake, typically. So,
well, I guess what I'm getting at is I remember in one of our podcast recordings with Eddie, we were talking about. I was like, so what is your setup on the sled? Are you poling? Are you kicking? Do you have a, like a, I guess, what is the proper setup called where you can sit in your sled?
yeah, I mean, they have like kind of the tail dragger, I guess you could call it. So some sleds just kind of end right where you're standing, and other sleds have the cooler behind you and a bag that puts some more gear.
Right. So I just remember asking him like, "What's your setup on the sled?" And he was like, "Oh, I stand the whole time." And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, "Man, that just sounds like a tough ask." If I'm just thinking about it from my
Yeah.
perspective, right? So I'll be curious to see, if he has any modifications to that in the years to come, just just to avoid having fallen off the sled. Um, I know that there's ways that they can like secure themselves with ropes or little, I don't know, little ways to, uh, you know, using your ingenuity to like, stay in or whatever. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Like he was like, "Oh yeah, no big deal," and then that ended up happening in the race. So
Hmm.
I'm sure that'll be something that he learns from. Um, and then let's see. Ryan Reddington wins in what is his 16th running of the Iditarod. Does that sound right to you?
That sounds about possible. I don't know for sure though. I mean, I've only been following the race for 6 or 7 years.
I just think that he's been at the race for so long, and 16 times, and he finally does it. That's he's been knocking at the door here for the last what 3 4 years with his top five finishes and such. Yeah, ninth place last year, seventh and eighth the years before. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. So there's eight that he finished, and it looks like there's a few that he hasn't finished. So I just thought that that was interesting as well. And
Yeah, that's
he's
a
he's
never
I
give up
couldn't
story right there.
and I couldn't believe this one. He's the first junior Iditarod winner to win the
Oh,
Iditarod. And when I
I
heard
didn't know
that,
that.
I was like, "There's no way." I'm sure Dallas is on that list. Apparently, Dallas did not win the junior Iditarod. So, so that's another kind of interesting fact about Ryan's win that maybe folks aren't aware of.
Hmm. I think Giles might be the only person that ran the junior Iditarod the same year that he ran the Iditarod because he turned 18 like the day of the start, so he was allowed to run in his rookie
Wow.
race.
So he
Uh,
ran the
but
junior Iditarod like what 2 weeks before the Iditarod, and then went out and ran the
think so.
Iditarod.
Yeah, I
That's
might
that's
need to
kind of
get
crazy.
fact checked on that, but yeah, and
Well, I'm just
yeah,
I'm
man.
just
I
gonna
mean,
I'm just gonna put it out in the air, man. Emily Robinson, are you the next person to maybe pull this off? She's
oh
won the
yeah,
last
dude,
two
she's
junior
getting that dub
Iditarods. I
all
mean,
day, dude.
you know,
Guaranteed.
I'd love to see what happens there. So, Sean, is there anything else that you want to discuss before we wrap things up?
Yeah, Nick Petit had one of the craziest runs times from safety to no
Okay.
potentially ever in the history of the race. Might be the fastest of all time. I'm not sure, but 2 hours and 12 minutes, 10 mile an hour average. You go up this massive hill uh, outside of safety, Cape Nome or whatever, and so it's typically there's at least like to go 10 miles an hour average going up, including a big hill you're going up. I mean, that's ridiculous. So it's cool to see these mushers that like Nick and um, you know, Dan Caduce and maybe, Wade Mars that had aspirations to win the race and it just wasn't in the cards. So you slowed things down, take an easier schedule, and then they finished super strong. I mean, those three guys I just mentioned had some of the faster times. Wade was getting just rocked by the wind, so he did have a slower time. But yeah, it was cool to see a lot of these guys like pull instead of kind of giving up and saying, "Oh, we're not going to win." They just kind of, "All right, let's enjoy the ride. We're going to fall back a little bit, and we'll get our speed back, and we'll get our team built back up." I mean, Jesse Holmes had one of the fastest runs from White Mountain in the whole race. He had a shot at winning the Iditarod. and you just got to commend somebody. Sees, hey, this isn't the team to win that Iditarod, I don't think, and he sees this long before it's actually a problem. He starts to bank more rest, do shorter runs. Dude, one of the coolest stories I heard from Matt Hall when it was like warm out in the beginning of the race, he said he ran his dogs 20 miles and then camped them. And then it's like, that's a move right there, and he gets it in fourth place. It's 45 degrees and sunny. Well, screw this, dude. I'm running 20 miles and we're gonna go take a nap and doing things like that at the beginning of the race. Look where it gets you, top five. So
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I was gonna say I think that's why he like snuck up on everyone. Like he had a relatively just kind of average
easy
paced,
start
easy half of the race, and then
because of the heat.
yeah, and then like post his 24-hour mandatory rest, he really started. That's when you saw the weather get better. Um, for me, I've gone back and watched the replay on the GPS of a couple of different mushers, and one thing that is very apparent to me is that front of the pack shot up the Yukon. Man, they just, I mean, a lot of those mushers averaged 10 miles an hour or over from certain checkpoints along the Yukon, which I just was like, man, just seems so fast. I mean, a couple of those runs are, I think, 60-ish miles.
Yeah, and that was partially because of how great the Mushers were doing with their dog care and their scheduling and managing their dog team and stuff. But also, this is one of the fastest trail conditions that you can get this year when you have those warm temperatures. It gets the snow and the trail is pretty heavy, and they kind of start to sag down and compress. And then when it's cold, it hardens, and you get these really fast trails. So a lot of fast run times this year. And I also want to shout out to Deke Nattenborn, because he finished with 12 dogs, and no one's even finished with 11. There's a couple of 10 dog teams that finished. Dude, this guy, 12. Not firstly, just want to say finishing with more dogs by itself isn't necessarily always a good thing. If you're like, oh, I'm gonna keep the dog on my team because I want to finish with a big team and not just send the dog home that needs to go home, right? That could be a problem. You don't want to just have a 12 dog team, but three of them should have been gone home 100 miles ago, right? But you watch Deke's team come to the finish line. If there's one video to watch, I mean that's one of the best videos of the whole thing. He gets to the finish line, his dog teams comes just hauling under the chute. And then the entire interview, he's answering these questions. His whole team's like just freaking out, barking and screaming and ready to rock. And then, they just drag him out of the finish line straight to the dog lot. I mean, dude, he finished with like such a strong team, and obviously he finished 20th place, and that's part of the reason his team was looking so good because he very conservative schedule with a bunch of rests. He got stopped by a storm and ended up and you know what? I don't want to go through this storm. I'm gonna wait till that blows over. And yeah, totally fine. This guy's got one of the fastest times from White Mountain and one of the best looking dog teams you can see at a finish line. So yeah, I guess that's kind of my final note.
Okay, nice. I did want to give a shout out. We had a couple people that were chatting with us during the video. Shout out to Kale Casey. He was proud
Kale
of
Casey live, dude.
Yeah, proud of our endurance with the cast. He says, and he also said that Hunter's finish interview was the best inspirational masterpiece. So it sounds like if you haven't watched that, go ahead and watch that. He was mentioning that Caduce, you could feel the pain of day 1 through 4 with the heat wave hitting his team in the heart of hearts. So I'm pretty sure Caduce is not used to running his dogs in warm temperature. He lives in an area that's stays pretty cold, right?
Up near Fairbanks, yeah, they're used to, the day of the start was minus 37, in Fairbanks, and like 30 degrees above zero in at the start. So yeah, he had some trouble with those warm temps, and that's why you saw him kind of chilling out at the beginning of the race, and kind of mending the effects of those warmer temperatures, and then building his team back up. And the second it got cold, they just exploded down the trail.
Nice. Well, shout out to Kale Casey for the comments. He was saying that he's been following us all of our episodes, and that he really enjoyed the episodes we've had with Sebastian. And so, I guess I take it you know Kale, Sean.
Yeah, Kale is does something similar to what we're doing. He does live coverage of some of the race starts, and it's in some cases, in some of these race starts, he's kind of part of the organization to help with the media, and he's just always been a good proponent of the mushing scene, and lives in Willow, right, the capital, mushing capital of the world. So it's you just love to see that like level of enthusiasm that he's had for the sport, and we need more Joe Casey's around, and I'm looking forward to seeing him at the next musher gathering, wherever the hell it's going to be. I'm sure I'll see him.
Nice. That sounds awesome. Shout out to Kale. Um, and then the last thing that I wanted to do was just quickly just appreciate all the love. Sean and I kind of set out this ambitious goal to start doing some YouTube videos literally like 2 weeks ago. I mean, we kind of had the idea before that, but like actually putting the idea on paper was probably about 2 weeks ago. So we appreciate you guys following, and anyone who has like who has watched us and is gone through some of the trial and error that we've experienced. We appreciate that for sure. So I just want to say thank you to Sean. This isn't easy. Like, I'm in Atlanta, 4 hours behind. Sean's there. We're all like sacrificing our time. Like, it's about midnight right now. But I love Sean, and I love doing this with him. So it's been something that's worth it. So I just wanted to say shout out to Sean. I wanted to thank you. I have to thank my wife. I would say if we have like 5 or 6 p.m. videos, so all those, that means on my end, that means that it was shot close to midnight usually. Every single one of those, my son Hatcher has woken up for and started crying. And I've been able to stay here in front of the camera and record while she's sacrificed to take care of him. So shout out to the wifey. And then I also want to give a quick shout out to my buddy Chris. He has been a huge proponent of helping us get this idea off the ground and getting used to YouTube and all of that. So I don't think we would have been able to do this if it weren't for him, because we don't know what the hell we're doing. So uh, Chris, I just want to make sure that you know how much we appreciate this. And I mean, it's kind of crazy. We went from no followers to like 200 followers in 2 weeks. We have like one of our videos has 1,500 views. That sounds crazy to even say, but my point being is thank you to everyone for supporting us. This is probably going to be one of our last Iditarod specific videos. So just make sure that you're following us on Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, it's mushing.alaska.podcast. And then on Facebook, it's just Mushing Alaska. We will still have a lot of content for you, but it mostly will be in the form of a podcast. We're still going to try to record some of that and get it on YouTube, but sometimes when you throw in a third and fourth person, it just makes logistics a little bit more crazy. But just be on the lookout. Sean and I started to write down a list of some upcoming people to interview, and there's going to be quite a few that we're going to try to get a hold of from the Iditarod so that they can share their story. So we're really excited about that. And Yeah, Sean, I don't know if you have anything that you wanted to add, but I just wanted to make sure we thank a few people in the process.
Yeah, of course. Thanks to you, dude. You do all the behind the scenes, made this badass map, and preparing all the things is it's crazy. Like it doesn't seem like it's that hard, but then you start doing it, and you're like, Jesus, this is uh, it's just one little thing after another. And so thanks to Brendan. Also, yeah, we have been grinding. I almost look, Brennan. I don't want to compare us to some of the mushers out on the Iditarod Trail, but what we've been doing here, it's almost, in a way, it's almost kind of harder than the Iditarod in a way, Yeah, because we get up, we talk for like 40 minutes, then we talk again for like another 40 minutes. That's it's almost kind of like running the Iditarod in a way, right?
Yeah, I mean, I I didn't think that I was very sleep deprived until mom was like, "Yeah, I watched that one video. You look like you're really tired in that one." And I was like, "Well, dang." But it's been worth it, man. I mean, there's been a few nights where I've gone to bed at like 2 or 3, and it's been tough, and my son, he's been waking up at like 5 in the morning, at least in the week one of the Iditarod. So I just told myself I was living a musher's life. That this is I was getting more sleep than the people in the race as it was, even though it was difficult doing it. But yeah, I have no regrets, and I'm glad we did this. I am looking forward to doing this again in the future. I think we've learned a lot of things that we will only continue to improve upon. I made this map halfway into doing this, right? So imagine if we like put a lot of effort into it on the front end, what the product will be. So we're happy to have done this, and we're looking forward to doing it again. I think we're also happy to be taking a break after this long week and a half, 2 week stretch. And yeah, I just we have to give thanks to the people that are supporting us and showing us love and interacting with us on all our different social media sites. So yeah, thank you. And I don't know, Sean, do you have one last thing to say, or we good to go?
Yeah, all the love to y'all, to you guys. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Bye for now.